So the Ben 2010 special is finally here, and so is my review. In a distant future where Gwen is President of the United States, Earth is under attack by an alien horde. Gwen leads the resistance against the threat. Ben, on the other hand, has been out of touch with his family for a long time. After being persuaded to come out of retirement, the grown-up Ben returns to the past to ask young Ben for help. Only together can they repel an attack that threatens the future. In this video, I'll be going over the events of Ben 2010 and give my thoughts on some of the story beats that happened, as well as go over some notes that I wrote down during my first viewing. So without further ado, let's review Ben 2010. The special starts with a new intro showing us all of Ben's villains. Then we get an animation of Ben transforming from alien to alien before cutting to a title, Ben 2010. At first I thought the beginning of Ben 10 vs. the Universe was the new intro, but I'm assuming that with these specials they'll all have their own little intro theme. 30 years in the future, the world is taken over by an alien race known as Zurg. Similar to the nanochips in the original series, they're a hive mind and share a consciousness. One thing I immediately liked about Zurg is that the sound design, specifically the noise they make in the beginning when they're all preparing to attack and making that beeping noise. But now that I think about it, I don't think they make that noise again. We transition to a news report of Zurg taking over Las Vegas, then cut to Madam President Gwendolyn in Bellwood, who's waiting to hear from the general, who turns out to be Hex. I like Hex as a villain, but I love him more as a hero. Not even like a hero, just a guy. I think seeing how he went from being a villain to a professor in Omniverse really rubbed on me, although we didn't have that much time with him as a reformed person. Also, in this continuity, Hex has been alive for hundreds of years, so having someone with that amount of knowledge, as well as his magical abilities, would be pretty useful. Hex tells Gwen that they'd be wise to have their own alien on their side, and says that he's the only one who can retrieve their champion in time. Of course, I thought he was initially talking about Ben, but we soon find out that it was Kevin. As it turns out, Hex isn't the only one who joined the fight for good, as we see that Zombozo has become Gwen's press secretary, and Steve Smythe is also working on their side, now being a sergeant and going against what he believes, now using modern technology to help build a battlesuit for Gwen. Gwen goes to fend off the invasion in Bellwood with some help as Hex teleports Kevin, who's in his Humongoraptor form, the Anti-Trix's mutant Vaxosaurian hybrid transformation. This might be an unpopular opinion, I guess, but I like Reboot Humongosaur's design more than the original, just because there's a lot more there with the spikes and the tail and all that. But Humongoraptor might be my third favorite Reboot design, just right next to Bashmouth and again Humongosaur. Omnikick's Cannonbolt is up there too. But Humongoraptor is essentially mini Godzilla, and I don't have a problem with that. I don't know if they're as close as they are in comparison to the original counterparts, but it does seem like there's something between Kevin and Gwen. A small friendship at least. Kevin being Ben's rival and Gwen not viewing Ben as a hero since he left all those years ago, it seems like they only had each other for quite a while. They defeat the first wave of Zurg, and Kevin decides they find Ben, which Gwen points out isn't a problem and sends Hex to go get him. When we first meet this Ben 10,000, he's living in a junkyard and stepping out of his home, sipping a smoothie as all Ben should, looking over at the destruction left behind by Zurg. It took me a minute to recognize the voice, but in the middle of the special, I realized he's voiced by Fred Tatasciore, who was the voice of Ultimate Ben. This Ben is living with Glitch and could care less about saving the world, saying that his hero days are long gone, and we see the return of Lewis, his inanimate friend, from the It's Storytime episode. Once he sees Hex, he immediately goes into hero mode and tries to activate the Omnitrix, but it takes a bit for it to work. It almost seemed as if it was deactivated for a moment. I'm not sure if that'll ever be explained, but I wonder if it has something to do with Ben not using his powers in so long. We see him have troubles when he transforms into Spider Monkey. The transformation kind of stops midway before continuing, so maybe it has something to do with his age. But the Omnitrix is merged with his DNA, so maybe since it's technically a part of his body, which hasn't been taken good care of since we see he's having joint pain and gets dizzy when he stands up too fast, it could be acting like any other body part or muscle if you don't take care or use it for a while. Hex tries to get through to Ben by bringing Hologram Max, whose master's consciousness uploaded to a program, which is the only thing they have left of their grandpa after Ben failed to save the world from Zurg years ago. Ben agrees to go with them and finds out almost every one of his villains has joined the side of good due to the desperate times, including Polar and Solar, the Bug Brothers, and Dr. Animal. Animal has been studying one of Zurg's pieces, and Ben finds something familiar about it before meeting Kevin and Gwen for the first time in years. Zurg attacks again, searching for another one of them within the Omnitrix, which is when we get the reboot appearance of Buzzshock. Ben gets attacked by Zurg and remembers a moment from his past. This is where we get to Project Bygone, which was referred to a few times by this point. Project Bygone sends Ben back in time in order to make things right in his present. Meanwhile, in the past, or our present, the Tennysons are enjoying their summer while Max is trying to get close to Maxine. Ben and Gwen are playing in the springs. Simon tells them that lunch is ready, and I actually really like Simon's character. Not as a villain, but just as a kid who just wants to hang out with Ben. And I hope we see more of that side of him because, I don't know, I just think he's funny. Steam Smite suddenly attacks with his new Cloctopus, which is when we get introduced to the new alien, Surge, who seems to not have any abilities besides flight, which is when Ben 10,000 shows up and takes Smite on with forearms. Ben and Gwen meet future Ben, and after they quickly eat everyone's lunch, the Says family are forced to get lunch somewhere else, since it would complicate things if Ben 10,000 arrived at the rest bucket while they were there. Grandpa Max pretty much immediately catches on that Ben is from the future, giving us another hint towards his mysterious past. They arrive back to the future and realize that they might have been too late when young Ben sees future Steam Smite. Now in this scene, Ben turns into Diamond Head without touching the watch. Now this could just be a one-off transformation sequence, but I wonder if it's a hint towards Ben becoming more in tune with his Omnitrix, and if so, in Ben 10 vs. the Universe, was the function he used to unlock Goop and Weybig a hint towards that as well, and will we even see it again? The Bens arrive on the battlefield as Heat Blast and Diamond Head, and we see a combo move they use to disorient Surge for a moment, which begs the question, what other moves and abilities has this Ben 10,000 come up with? In the final battle of Surge vs. Surge, both Bens use Surge transformations to collect Surge's pieces to tear him apart. There was a moment when young Ben was heading back to his time, and he wasn't wearing the Omnitrix, which threw me off as I was wondering where it went and how Zerg might have taken it off of him. But it was just a little animation error. It ends with Ben 10,000 back in the future, returning to the hero scene and shouting "It's hero time." It ends with Ben 10,000 back in the future, returning to the hero scene, running towards the screen and shouting "It's hero time," which seems to be a reference to how Secret of the Omnitrix ended. So, final thoughts. I enjoyed it. No matter what Ben 10,000 we meet, I'm always interested to see what Ben's aliens look like as adults, and how this Ben 10,000 differs from the previous ones we've seen. I think it could have been a bit longer, just add some more future stuff, or have Ben 10,000 stay in the past for a bit, but I had a good time. Now, about Zerg, I mean, whenever I review something, I like to try not to be too mean about it when I'm talking about something that I didn't like. But at the end of the day, they were just another Zeskar or Vilgax. Their DNA was scanned into the Omnitrix, and now they want it back to become whole again. It's the third time we've gone through something like this within the franchise, but I wasn't as focused on that as much as I was on the abilities he had. I like the fact that Ben can't use Surge's abilities completely unless he has another one of his kind around him. I think it'll make it more interesting to see what he does if he mistransforms and has to solve a problem with Surge. Maybe he has powers that he can do on his own that we haven't seen yet. I'm not sure who he replaced in the active playlist, but he's the 5th new alien to be introduced in the reboot, and I think he's interesting enough. Again, not sure how he'll be used in regular fight sequences in the show, but we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I liked it. I watched it with my nephew, who's relatively new to Ben 10, and I enjoy seeing his reactions to everything. All in all, I enjoyed myself. If it's one thing I had to say I didn't like, besides Zerge's backstory, his vague backstory, it had to be how, again, vague the future stuff was. I'd like a better explanation on why the Entrix deactivated, or how Max died, but since this was an alternate future, we might not even see this timeline again, so I guess fleshing it out to the smallest detail would be pointless if they don't return to this world. I mean, I say that, but we never really got an explanation on the events that turned the original Ben 10,000 into the one we knew him as. I'll probably do a video ranking and explaining my favorite versions of Ben 10,000, or create a list ranking these specials with Alien Swarm, Secret of the Omnitrix, and the others. I'll have to put it on the list. But that's it for this review. The next one will be on Ben Gen 10, and I hope you return for it. Thanks for watching, leave a like if you want, and I'll see you when I see you.